Once upon a time, in a quaint village at the edge of a thick forest, there lived a curious boy named Leo. Leo wasn't like the other children in the village. While they spent their days playing games and splashing in the creek, Leo's mind was always consumed by books. He would sneak into the village library, a place often forgotten by most, and lose himself in the tales of far-off lands, magical creatures, and legendary heroes. He dreamed of adventure, though he had never gone far from the village himself. One day, while rummaging through the dusty shelves of the library, Leo found something unusual: a golden notebook. It was wedged between two ancient volumes, almost hidden. The cover glowed faintly, and when Leo touched it, a warm tingling sensation shot up his arm. "What is this?" he murmured to himself, pulling it out. The notebook was light, and the pages inside were blank. Curious, Leo slipped it into his satchel, thinking it was just another old artifact. That night, as Leo sat in his room staring out the window at the moonlit sky, he opened the golden notebook again. This time, something magical happened. As soon as the notebook was opened, glowing words began to appear on the first page. "To the one who opens this book, know that you hold the key to adventures untold. Follow the seaweed that sparkles, and let the tiny horse guide you. Trust in the jumping frog, and never falter when you meet the brave soldier. Only then will you uncover the secret of the golden notebook." Leo gasped. Could it be real? His heart raced with excitement. He had read countless stories of magical journeys, but he never thought he would embark on one himself. He knew there was only one place to start: the village's mysterious shoreline, where the seaweed often sparkled under the moonlight. The next morning, Leo set off on his adventure. He didn't tell anyone where he was going, for fear they would stop him or laugh at him for chasing a fantasy. With the golden notebook tucked safely in his satchel, he ventured toward the coast, where the crashing waves of the ocean were faintly visible beyond the trees. The village had long whispered about the sparkling seaweed that sometimes washed up on the shore during the early hours of the morning. It was said to be magical, but no one knew its purpose. When Leo reached the coastline, the morning mist hung over the beach like a thin veil. As the tide rolled in and out, strands of seaweed glistened like jewels in the dawn light. They shimmered with an ethereal glow, lighting up the otherwise gray shoreline. Leo knelt down and gingerly picked up a strand of the sparkling seaweed. As soon as he touched it, a pathway of light appeared before him, stretching far into the ocean. But the strangest part was that the water seemed to part, revealing a narrow path of dry sand that led straight into the depths of the sea. "This is it," Leo exclaimed, feeling a surge of excitement. The notebook's riddle was beginning to unfold. With a deep breath, he stepped onto the glowing path. The air grew colder, and the sound of the crashing waves became distant. As Leo walked deeper into the ocean, he saw strange creatures swimming beside him: colorful fish with wings, shimmering dolphins that leaped in the air, and jellyfish that pulsed with vibrant hues. It was like walking through a dream. Suddenly, a loud croak echoed across the watery expanse. Leo turned around to see a small, green frog hopping toward him. The frog leaped effortlessly from one glowing stone to the next, each one appearing out of nowhere to support its weight. "Are you the jumping frog the notebook spoke of?" Leo asked, bending down to get a closer look. The frog croaked again and nodded its head, as if understanding. Without hesitation, the frog began to hop ahead, leading Leo further along the strange pathway. Every time Leo thought the path might disappear into the ocean, the jumping frog would leap forward, and another glowing stone would rise from the depths to guide their way. They walked for hours, or perhaps it was days. Leo couldn't tell. Time felt strange in this place, as if it no longer followed the rules of the normal world. The path led them to the edge of a great cavern beneath the sea, where towering cliffs rose up around them. At the base of the cliffs, Leo saw a narrow entrance, just big enough for him to slip through. The frog hopped forward again, disappearing into the darkness of the cavernous entrance. Leo hesitated for a moment, unsure of what might await him inside, but the glow of the notebook reassured him. He took a deep breath and followed. Inside the cavern, the air was warm and thick with the smell of salt. The walls glistened with crystals, casting faint beams of light in every direction. But what truly caught Leo's attention was the figure standing in the center of the cavern. A man dressed in shining armor stood tall and imposing, his face hidden beneath a steel helmet. In one hand, he held a gleaming sword, and in the other, a shield emblazoned with a crest that Leo didn't recognize. "Who goes there?" the man's voice boomed, echoing off the cavern walls. I am Leo," the boy stammered, his heart racing. "I am following the golden notebook's instructions." The armored figure lowered his sword slightly, as if considering Leo's words. Then he nodded. "I am the brave soldier, protector of the path. If you wish to pass, you must prove your courage." Leo swallowed hard. He had always read about brave heroes in books, but now he was face to face with a real one. What kind of challenge could the brave soldier possibly present? The soldier raised his sword again, this time pointing it toward a small opening in the far wall of the cavern. "There lies the Cave of Shadows," the soldier explained. "Inside, you will find your greatest fear. Only by facing it will you be able to continue your journey." Leo's legs trembled slightly, but he nodded. He had come too far to turn back now. With the jumping frog at his side, Leo walked toward the opening in the cavern wall and stepped inside. As soon as he entered the Cave of Shadows, the temperature dropped. The light from the crystals outside faded, leaving only the faint glow from the golden notebook to guide him. The walls seemed to close in, and Leo felt a creeping sense of dread wash over him. The shadows around him flickered and danced, shifting into strange and terrifying shapes. Leo's heart pounded as he continued deeper into the cave. The shadows seemed to whisper his deepest fears, the fear of failure, the fear of being lost forever, the fear of never finding his way home. But just as the darkness began to overwhelm him, Leo remembered something his father had once told him. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, Leo. It's the strength to face it." Taking a deep breath, Leo stood tall and faced the shadows head-on. "I am not afraid," he said aloud, though his voice trembled. "I will finish this journey." At that moment, the shadows began to dissolve. The cold fear that had gripped his heart faded away, and the cave grew warm again. Light filled the space, and the entrance to the cavern opened before him. Leo stepped out, and there stood the brave soldier, a proud look in his eyes. "You have passed the test," the soldier said, lowering his sword completely. "Your courage is true. Continue your journey." Before Leo could say anything, the ground beneath them began to shake, the cavern walls trembled, and suddenly, a tiny figure darted out from a hidden passage in the cave. It was a horse no larger than a cat, with glossy brown fur and a mane that shimmered like silver. The tiny horse galloped toward Leo, stopping right at his feet and letting out a cheerful whinny. "Is this?" Leo began. "Yes," the soldier said, sheathing his sword. "The tiny horse will guide you the rest of the way." Leo knelt down and gently stroked the horse's mane. The little creature nuzzled against his hand, its big eyes full of warmth and trust. Without waiting for further instructions, the tiny horse began to trot away, heading toward a narrow path that wound around the edge of the cliffs. Leo followed the horse, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. With the brave soldier's test behind him and the tiny horse leading the way, he knew he was getting closer to the truth of the golden notebook. The frog hopped alongside him, still ever present, though it seemed even more cheerful now. As they ascended the cliffs, the sea sparkled below, and Leo could see the horizon stretching far beyond what he had ever imagined. The journey was long and arduous, but the tiny horse never faltered, and neither did Leo. At last, they reached the top of the cliffs, where an ancient stone door stood, covered in moss and seaweed. In the center of the door was a golden lock, glowing faintly just like the notebook. Leo reached into his satchel and pulled out the golden notebook. As soon as it touched the lock, the door creaked open, revealing a hidden chamber beyond. Inside, there was a small pedestal, and on it lay a shimmering key made entirely of light. "This is it," Leo whispered, stepping inside. The key seemed to pulse with energy, as if waiting for him. With trembling hands, Leo picked up the key, and in that moment, the entire chamber was bathed in golden light. The notebook, the tiny horse, the jumping frog, all of it had led him to this very moment. And as the light grew brighter, Leo realized the truth. The golden notebook had not just been leading him on a physical journey, but one of courage, friendship, and discovery. The key, it turned out, was the key to his own heart, to unlocking the bravery and strength that had always been within him. As the light faded, Leo found himself standing back at the village, the golden notebook still glowing faintly in his hand. He had returned home, but he was no longer the same boy who had set out that morning. He had faced his fears, trusted in the unlikely companions that had guided him, and uncovered the truth of the golden notebook. And as Leo stood there, looking out at the sparkling seaweed along the shore, he knew that his adventure had only just begun.